Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Against the silver sky of a major American metropolis, towers glitter in the setting sun. Among them, one in particular catches the eye, the Anderson Imperial Hotel, an internationally renowned palace, a symbol of luxury and prestige. Behind this empire is a woman whose name is synonymous with success, Victoria Anderson, a black billionaire whose intelligence and determination have built a legacy few would have thought possible. Victoria is not just a woman of power. She is a visionary. Yet, despite her successes and appearances in the world's greatest business circles, she remains deeply committed to a value that no fortune can buy: respect for every human being, regardless of their social status. But whispers begin to reach her. In the corridors of her own hotels, some high-ranking employees reportedly treat those who work behind the scenes with contempt: housekeepers, porters, dishwashers. These whispers become persistent rumors, until Victoria decides to discover the truth for herself. One evening, in the silence of her vast office overlooking the city, she made a decision that would forever change the culture of her empire. She won't come as a respected CEO, but as a simple cleaning lady. His goal is not just to verify facts, but to deliver a lesson that his employees will never forget. Victoria Anderson sat in the top-floor conference room of the Anderson Imperial Tower, a skyscraper overlooking the city. Around her, a dozen managers discussed figures and forecasts, their voices echoing like a well-oiled machine: occupancy rates, profit margins, VIP client satisfaction. But Victoria was only half listening. Her brown eyes stared distractedly at the cityscape beyond the windows, a weight growing in her mind. The numbers were good, business was booming, and yet, something was wrong. "Madam Anderson," asked one of the directors, a man in a gray suit who nervously adjusted his tie, "would you like to validate the new marketing strategy for premium customers?" Victoria turned her head slowly towards him, her face impassive but her thoughts elsewhere. "Premium customers, you say?" She paused. "And what about our staff?" A surprising silence fell over the room. Eyes met, awkward, as if no one had anticipated this question. "Our staff," repeated a director of the financial department, "things are going well on that front. We've hired more cleaners and waiters to keep up with demand." Victoria frowned. "That's not what I asked. I'm not talking about numbers. I'm talking about respect, dignity. How are our employees treated on a daily basis?" Another director forced a smile. "Oh, these are simple positions. They're paid to do their job, and they do it." The billionaire folded her hands on the table, her eyes igniting with a light they knew well, the one that always preceded an unexpected decision. She remembered her beginnings. Before owning luxury hotels, Victoria had been a waitress in a small neighborhood restaurant. She knew the humiliations, the curt orders, the stares that pierced you as if you were invisible. And it was precisely this memory that had driven her to build an empire where every employee had to feel worthy. "I'll go see for myself," she said finally, breaking the heavy silence. The directors exchanged surprised glances. "How so?" asked one of them. Victoria stood up, imposing despite her elegant figure. "I will go out into the field, not as a CEO, but as a cleaning lady. I want to see what my employees see, hear what they hear, and feel what they feel. Only then will I know the truth." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room. The idea seemed insane, almost scandalous to some. But those who truly knew Victoria knew, once she made a decision, nothing and no one could stop her. And that day, she had just chosen the most unexpected path of her career. The next morning, Victoria Anderson's vast penthouse echoed not with the usual noise of her assistants, but with an almost solemn calm. She had dismissed everyone for a few hours, keeping only a trusted makeup artist and a wardrobe designer she had known for a long time. Before her, on the cream leather sofa, lay an outfit very different from the ones she usually wore. No haute couture dress, no elegant suit by a top designer. No, this morning, what awaited her were simple, slightly worn black trousers, a drab t-shirt, a stained cotton apron, and cheap flats. Beside them, a head scarf completed the outfit. Victoria took a deep breath. So, let's make the billionaire disappear. The makeup artist smiled, picking up her brushes. Little by little, Victoria's radiant, perfectly manicured face changed. Her skin's glow was toned down with a dull foundation, her dark circles were slightly darkened, and all traces of elaborate makeup were erased. Her shiny hair was hidden beneath a simply knotted scarf. When she looked in the mirror, she surprised herself. The woman reflecting back at her was no respected and adored CEO. She was a tired, invisible woman, like those you pass every day in the hallways of a hotel without ever giving them a second glance. Perfect, she whispered, with a mixture of gravity and excitement, now I'm ready. The costume designer adjusted the apron. You look like any other cleaning lady. No one will guess who you are. Victoria nodded. She grabbed a bucket and a mop, unremarkable tools, but ones that would become her weapons in uncovering the truth. Before leaving, she paused for a moment in front of the bay window that offered a breathtaking view of the city. Her hands tightened on the handle of the mop. I built an empire to make every employee feel worthy. If I failed at that level, then all that wealth is worthless. And without another word, she left her apartment. The billionaire was gone. That day, it was Victoria, an anonymous housekeeper, who walked through the doors of the Anderson Imperial Hotel. Victoria Anderson's usual limousine remained safely parked in her private garage that morning. Instead, a taxi brought her to the entrance of the majestic Anderson Imperial Hotel, her own palace. She stepped out, holding a bucket in one hand and an old mop in the other. For the first time, she was walking through those doors not as the adored owner, but as an ordinary employee. Entering through the staff-only entrance, she immediately sensed the difference. No red carpet, no warm smiles, no complimentary champagne. Just a long gray hallway, metal lockers, and the smell of cleaning products. A few cleaners were quickly changing, their tired faces reflecting the long hours of work that lay ahead. "Are you the new one?" asked one of them, a woman in her 50s with a Latin accent. "Yes," Victoria replied calmly, trying to mask her naturally confident tone. "My name is Vicky." The woman nodded. "My name is Lucia." "Welcome to the Invisibles Club," she gave a bitter smile. Victoria followed her to the supervisor's office. There, a stocky man in a tight suit greeted them curtly without looking up from his computer. "New recruit? Perfect. You, Vicky, take floor 12. Not a cross word, not late, and above all, remain discreet. Guests don't like to see cleaning ladies hanging around the hallways. Understood?" Victoria felt a cold anger rise within her, but she lowered her head and replied simply. "Understood." As she left the office, she passed two elegantly dressed receptionists who looked her up and down before bursting into laughter. "Look at that new girl. Even her bucket looks older than her. Yeah, I hope she can at least mop properly." Victoria looked away. She carefully recorded every word, every gesture. She already knew this day would be full of revelations. But deep inside her, one thought persisted: if I, the boss, feel this contempt in just a few minutes, what do my real employees endure every day? She took a deep breath, gripped the handle of her bucket, and headed for the staff elevator. The game had barely begun. Floor 12 shone with luxury. Thick carpets muffled footsteps, gilded lamps cast a warm glow, and sweet doors displayed elegantly engraved numbers. Yet for Victoria, now simply Vicky, this splendor was merely a veneer. Behind it, she already felt the cold stares that would soon weigh on her. As she was mopping the floor outside a suite, a young manager in a tailored suit appeared from the hallway. His name tag read, Richard Collins, front desk manager. He frowned when he saw her kneeling. "Hey you," he said dryly. "Don't clean here at this hour. Customers don't like to meet people like you." Victoria looked up slowly. "I'm just doing what I've been asked, sir." Richard sighed, annoyed. "Listen, I don't have time to argue. Hurry up and be invisible. Understand?" He walked away without even waiting for her answer. Behind him, two receptionists who happened to be passing by chuckled. "Did you see how he spoke to her?" whispered one. "Normal. These cleaning ladies are only there to clean, not to exist." Victoria felt an unpleasant heat rise in her chest. She gripped the mop handle tighter. But she remained silent. "Observe," she told herself. "Observe and remember." Later, while she was cleaning a hallway, a client came out of her suite, his phone pressed to his ear. Seeing her, he raised a disdainful eyebrow. "Could you at least wait until I'm gone before you smear my eyes with that broom?" he threw before slamming the door. Victoria froze for a moment. She knew contempt. But hearing it directed at her in her own hotel, while wearing her staff uniform, was a brutal experience. She resumed her work, her heart heavy, when a soft voice broke the silence. "Don't pay attention to them," said Lucia, approaching with her cart. "Some people think that because we clean up their trash, we're worthless. But you and I know the truth. Without us, this palace would be a dump." Victoria looked at her, touched by her quiet strength. "You're right," she breathed. But deep inside her, a resolution was growing: these humiliations would not go without consequences. After the public humiliation she endured in front of Richard Collins and the receptionists, Victoria returned to her duties with quiet determination. She walked the luxurious corridors, promising herself she would remember every word and every glance. But the more time she spent among the staff, the more she discovered a contrasting reality: not all of them were arrogant or cruel. In the staff lounge, a small, cramped room with plastic tables and a tired coffee maker, Victoria tentatively sat down with her tray. Conversations buzzed around her. Some talked about demanding customers, others complained about their superiors. But one thing was striking: the complicity among the cleaning staff. Lucia, the woman who had greeted her upon her arrival, came to sit next to her. "So, how was your first morning?" she asked with a kind smile. Victoria hesitated, playing her part. "It's difficult. People don't really look at you. Sometimes, they even trample on you with their eyes." Lucia nodded. "Welcome to our everyday life. But you'll get used to it. Here, you'll find two kinds of people: those who crush you, and those who lift you up." As if to confirm her words, a young woman of barely 20 years old, named Maya, approached. She placed an apple on Victoria's tray. "Hey, I see you haven't had anything. Eat something, you'll need the strength to last the rest of the day." Victoria thanked her, touched by this simple but sincere gesture. Maya, with her bright smile despite her fatigue, embodied the raw kindness of those who worked hard without recognition. On the other side, another employee entered loudly: Daniel, a waiter. He glared at the cleaning staff. "Are you still hanging around? While you're chatting, some of us are doing real work." Lucia clenches her jaw, but remains calm. "A real job? Without us, Daniel, your customers would be eating their meals in dirty hallways." Daniel snickered, shrugging. "It doesn't matter. Customers remember us, the servers, not you. You're invisible, and that's a good thing." Victoria stared at him, her dark eyes hiding an icy anger. Invisibles, she thought, not for long. At that moment, she understood that her experiment went far beyond mere control. She was delving into the hidden depths of her own empire, revealing its true colors: the kindness of Lucia and Maya, but also the arrogance of Richard and Daniel. And soon, the time would come to account for the loss. The afternoon promised to be calm, but Victoria would soon discover that fate, or rather, human arrogance, had planned to test her. As she mopped the floor in a deserted hallway, Richard Collins, the manager, appeared again. His eyes fixed on her with the same mixture of contempt and misplaced authority. "You," he barked, "the news. I have a special job for you." Victoria put down her broom, her heart pounding with controlled anger. "Yes, sir." Richard gave a wry smile. "The presidential suite, on the 15th floor. A VIP client has just left a bit of a mess." At that moment, Daniel, the waiter, walked by and said, laughing. Small mess? You mean a battlefield? Even an army would have trouble cleaning that up. The two burst out laughing, under Victoria's heavy gaze. Well? Insisted Richard. What are you waiting for? Hurry up. Show us you're good for something. Victoria took a deep breath and obeyed. Arriving at the presidential suite, she opened the door, and froze. The room, usually a luxurious jewel with its glittering chandeliers and polished marble, resembled a dump: overturned bottles, food scraps crushed in the carpet, ripped cushions, towels thrown everywhere. A pungent odor hung in the air. Lucia, who had followed her discreetly, whispered in her ear. Did Richard send you here? Victoria nodded. Yes. Lucia sighed. He often does this with news. To break them right from the start, to remind them they're nothing. But don't worry, I'll help you. Victoria puts her hand on his arm. No. Let me do it alone. I want to understand how far they can go. Lucia looked at her in surprise but respected her choice. Victoria rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Every bottle picked up, every stain scrubbed was a silent slap in the face. Every garbage bag filled was a testament to the gratuitous cruelty of her superiors. At the door, Daniel came back, accompanied by two receptionists. They burst out laughing when they saw Victoria on her knees, scrubbing the carpet. Look at this, one sneered, the new one cleaning like an obedient dog. You should get used to it, darling, added Daniel. That's the only thing you'll be doing here, picking up after others. Victoria raised her head, her eyes burning with an icy flame. But she said nothing. She returned to her work, each gesture fueling an implacable resolve: these humiliations would soon be answered. Because what they didn't know was that the new cleaning lady they were scolding was none other than their boss. And soon, the time for revelation would come. Evening fell on the Anderson Imperial Hotel, bathing the facade in 1,000 golden lights. In the banquet hall, preparations were in full swing: immaculate tablecloths, sparkling chandeliers, perfectly aligned silver cutlery. It was the grand executive dinner, a reception held quarterly for the hotel's senior executives and a select few partners. Victoria, still under her housekeeper guise, discreetly observed the comings and goings. Normally, she would have been the host of this evening, welcoming her guests with grace and authority. But tonight, she was just a shadow among the staff. Vicky, Daniel called sharply, dressed in his waiter's uniform. Go to the banquet hall and clean that stain on the floor over there, near the head table. Hurry, before the leaders arrive. Victoria grabbed her bucket and complied. She entered the large room, where some executives were already chatting and laughing over drinks. Crouching down, she discreetly scrubbed the floor. But very quickly, she felt the stares. Stares that pierced her, sized her up, judged her. Richard Collins, the manager, nodded at a colleague and whispered loud enough to be heard. These are the kind of people who remind us that every job needs little hands. But let's be honest, some hands shouldn't be visible in front of guests. Muffled laughter erupted around him. Victoria bowed her head, but her heart was boiling. A few minutes later, the first leaders took their seats. Victoria, still kneeling, was about to leave the room when Daniel, with a smirk, accidentally spilled a glass of red wine onto the immaculate tablecloth. "Oh mince," he said, feigning surprise. "Vicky, clean that up right now." All eyes turned to her. Laughter began to erupt among the guests. "You can't even have a quiet dinner without seeing a cleaning lady crawling under the table," one of the executives said. "It's almost entertaining," added another, taking a sip of champagne. Victoria, her hands trembling, diligently wiped away the wine. But inside, a storm was brewing. Every burst of laughter was an arrow. Every contemptuous word, a scar. Lucia, who was passing by with a tray, looked at her sadly. But Victoria, without revealing her true identity, gently raised her eyes. In her gaze shone a silent promise: laugh, despise, soon it will be me who looks down on you, and you who crawl before the truth. That night, Victoria realized that humiliation wasn't just a test. It was the mirror that showed her the true souls of her employees. And some would soon bitterly regret having laughed. It was long past nightfall when Victoria reached the small staff lounge. The executive dinner had ended with laughter and champagne, but for her, all that remained was the bitterness of yet another humiliation. Lucia and Maya were already waiting for her. The two women, visibly tired, were sipping lukewarm coffees from plastic cups. When Victoria entered, Maya gave her a comforting smile. "You held on, Vicky. I saw you there. You didn't cry, you didn't hang your head. That's rare." Victoria sat down, her hands clasped around her empty cup. "How do you cope with this, every day?" she asked in a low voice. Lucia sighed deeply. "We put up with it because we have no choice. I have 3 children. If I leave, who will pay for their studies? And me," added Maya, "I help my sick mother. So yes, we accept the humiliations, the insults, sometimes even the inappropriate advances. We smile, we keep quiet, we take it." Silence fell. Victoria felt a lump form in her throat. She, the billionaire, had never imagined that hell lurked within the corridors of her own empire. Then Lucia squeezed her cup so hard that it bent. "But you know, Vicky, there are days when I dream that everything will change. That these people will understand what they're doing to us. Because we're not ghosts. We're women, mothers, human beings." Maya nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "One day they'll see. We may not be rich, but without us, their palace would crumble. We are the invisible walls holding this place together." Victoria felt a surge of deep respect for these women. She had read reports, signed checks, approved budgets, but never had she heard the silent anger of the invisible. So, for the first time since the beginning of her ordeal, she spoke with sincerity, almost forgetting her role. "You're right. And believe me, sooner or later, justice will be done." Lucia stared at her, intrigued. "Your words. It sounds like you really believe in change." Victoria simply smiled mysteriously. Deep within her, a resolve burned, she would embody this change. And those who had laughed at the suffering of her employees would soon find themselves facing a truth they had never imagined. The next morning, Victoria rose before dawn, still disguised as a maid. Her mind was bubbling with a plan she had been mulling over all night. It was time to set a trap for those who had humiliated her and reveal the truth in a memorable way. In the main lobby, she watched her colleagues carefully. Richard Collins was already chatting with a few executives, displaying his usual arrogance. Daniel, meanwhile, was laughing his way past the cleaners, making sarcastic remarks as if the whole world belonged to him. Victoria decided to play a simple but effective role. She would fake a serious mistake. On the VIP floor, she dropped a tray with some fragile items, ostensibly an accident. The noise startled everyone, and Daniel immediately rushed over, ready to mock her. "What did you do?" he shouted, his eyes wide. "It's not me," Victoria stammered, feigning innocence while exaggerating her panic. Richard arrived in turn, red with anger. "Unbelievable. Even for a cleaning lady, you're incompetent. You'll pay for this." As she watched, Victoria noted every gesture, every expression. Laughter and sarcasm erupted, reinforcing the conviction that a lesson needed to be taught. But what interested her most was to see who would remain human amidst the cruelty. Lucia stepped forward calmly and said, "Wait. This isn't fair. It was just an accident. We can fix this without humiliating Vicky." Maya joined her, supporting her colleague. "Yes, stop yelling. No one needs to be shamed for a mistake." Victoria felt a warmth fill her heart. These women, loyal and supportive, had reacted with dignity. Richard and Daniel, on the other hand, continued to shout and mock, unaware that the truth was about to come out. It was at this precise moment that Victoria slowly removed her scarf and gloves, dropping her mop. Her neatly tied hair revealed her identity, and her radiant but stern face struck everyone present. Surprise, she announced in a firm voice that I'm not just a housekeeper. I'm Victoria Anderson, the CEO of this hotel. Silence fell. Laughter froze, jaws clenched. Daniel and Richard paled, immediately understanding the extent of their arrogance. The other employees, notably Lucia and Maya, stared at Victoria with admiration and relief. You thought you could humiliate and despise those who serve you, thinking they were invisible, she continued, her voice echoing around the room, but a person's true worth is not measured by their position, their clothes, or their rank. It is measured by their humanity and how they treat others. Victoria had set her trap subtly, and the lesson would remain etched in the memory. The shock in the room remained palpable for several seconds. Richard Collins and Daniel froze, unsure where to look. The other executives and employees slowly digested the revelation. The woman they had humiliated was none other than their CEO. Victoria, standing, imposing despite her simple attire, let the silence settle, heavy and solemn. Then she spoke again, firmer than ever. You've just seen what my employees go through every day. The humiliation, the sarcasm, the contempt, all of this is intolerable in my hotel. She turned to Lucia and Maya, who were smiling proudly. And you, my dear colleagues, have shown what dignity, solidarity, and respect are all about. You are the true heart of this institution. Richard, still red with shame, murmured. I didn't know. Victoria stared at him intensely. That's the problem. You never bothered to find out. Starting today, there will be changes. Mandatory training on respect and inclusion, better working conditions, real recognition for your efforts. And for those who persist in arrogance and contempt, you will be replaced. Daniel looked away, unable to answer. The invisible employees exchanged glances of silent triumph. The cleaning lady they had ignored had just become their boss again, and this time, with an authority that could not be challenged. Victoria finally smiled, completely removing her disguise. And remember, she added, true greatness is not measured by wealth or title. It is measured by how we treat those who work alongside us, often in the shadows. That day, the hotel changed. The employees' dignity was restored, and those who had abused their power received the lesson they deserved. Victoria had transformed humiliation into an instrument of justice, proving that the greatness of a leader is seen in the respect they inspire and distribute to all. And for Victoria Anderson, the billionaire who chose to go invisible to reveal the truth, the day marked a victory far greater than any contract or profit, the recognition of everyone's humanity.